You know, in this mid-season period of House of the Dragon, people have been talking a lot about Alicent's troubled sons, Aegon the Elder and Aemond, but we think that people are missing out on how interesting Helaena's proving to be. In this video, we're gonna show Helaena some love, more than Alicent ever did, heyo, and talk about the prophecies she's revealed so far. First, here's something you might not have noticed about Helaena. Because Alicent really isn't the mother of the century, all of her kids have pretty complicated relationships with her. Aemond and Aegon have had to grow up themselves, on the streets of King's Landing, which has turned the former into a bloodthirsty maniac and the latter into someone who hates himself and others. Helaena, meanwhile, may have spent more of her childhood in the Red Keep, but she's still distant from everyone, living in her own world with her bugs. For this reason, you might have noticed that throughout the show, whenever Alicent tries to show physical affection to Helaena, she pushes her away. In the 6th episode, for example, Alicent tries to comfort her daughter, but she gets rebuffed. Later in the season, Helaena is not very open to affection from Alicent at the passing of her father, King Viserys, either, slapping her hand away. It's an interesting detail in the show if you think about it. While the boys generally seek their mom's approval, and Aegon straight up asks his mom to say she loves him, Helaena is uninterested in any affection that Alicent may offer. Why is that? Well, we have two reasons that we'd like to suggest to you today. One has to do with all the prophecies that Helaena can see. The other one, which is a bit more on the obvious side of things, is that Helaena has no bond with Alicent. Let's start with the obvious one. It's an Alicent problem. The show has taken pains to show us the contrast between Rhaenyra and Alicent's parenting as mothers. In the show's Emily Carey and Millie Alcock era, we see that Rhaenyra is a carefree teenager who's largely in control of when she gets married, while Alicent is already resenting the fact that she has 3 kids in her teens. Scenes will often introduce Alicent with a baby in her arms and a sullen look on her face, and she'll quickly hand off her child to a maid when it's time to do something. As the years pass and the actresses change, we see that Rhaenyra has a more traditionally normal parenting style for the kids she had when she wanted them. Alicent has come to love her children, but she's also gripped by paranoia for their lives, and she doesn't seem very involved in the parenting side of things. That's the reason that her sons have turned out to be real head cases. That's a clear reason why the kids feel so distant from their mother. And here the show draws a contrast between the sons and the daughter. While the sons try to get some words or gestures of affection from their mother, Helaena seems to have given up on the whole idea and even feels uncomfortable with it. Clearly this bugs Alicent, but there's little she can do about it at this point. Moving on, the second reason has to do with Helena's prophecies. The Targaryen bloodline has a long history of so-called dreamers. These are individuals who can see visions of the future in their dreams. Viserys was one, and he glimpsed the events of Game of Thrones in his dreams. While Viserys was expecting one of his sons to have the dreamer trait in them, it looks like the trait has passed to his daughter instead. Helaena sees visions greatly, but there are hints throughout the show that being touched by people can intensify the visions she has about them. If that's the case, the fact that she doesn't like being touched by Alicent might be a bad omen for Alicent, implying that there's bad stuff in her future. Of course, you could always crack open the Fire and Blood book to find out what Alicent's future is gonna look like, but we won't spoil that stuff here. Now, Helaena isn't totally against being touched by people. She's married to Aegon and has children with him, and she had that dance with Jace at Viserys' Last Supper. Does that mean good things for them in terms of her visions? Again, there's a place you could go to find out, but we'll leave that up to you. We're going to take a look at all the cryptic stuff that Helaena has dreamed and figure out what they could be prophesying. We'll begin with one of Helena's biggest early predictions. He'll have to close an eye. This prophecy comes after little Aemond is shown his dragon by his brother Aegon and his cousins Jacaerys and Lucerys. Except the dragon is a pig nicknamed the Pink Dread. Later, Aemond goes and complains to his mommy, who reassures him that he will have a dragon of his own someday. In the background, Helaena is off in her own world and adds to the conversation that Aemond will have to close an eye to get his dragon. We eventually found out what she meant by that. Aemond sneaks into the dark of night at Driftmark and pinches Vhagar, the world's largest dragon, for himself. While he manages to get the dragon with just a massive fright the first time he flew, Helena's prophecy was fulfilled in the confrontation later, when Aemond fights Jace and Luke and gets his eye slashed. What Helaena did not predict, of course, was the lifetime of strong boy puns that was coming. Up next is the prediction that the last ring has no legs at all. Now this is one that's pretty easy to miss. Helaena throws this one out there in the same scene we talked about earlier, and she appears to be talking about the millipede rings that have caught her attention. But since the literal last sentence she said turned out to be a prophecy, this might well be too. We don't have much basis for what the last ring could be referring to, but no legs at all is a pretty clear statement, since she predicted a lifelong disability for Aemond in the same scene. She might also be predicting a lifelong disability for Aegon. Again, you'll have to refer to Fire and Blood blood to find out whether she was actually talking about Aegon or not. But there is another character in this universe who famously has no legs at all. The future Bran the Broken himself will become the ruler of Westeros at the end of a long and arduous journey, both for himself and the nation. Here we might find an explanation for the last ring. Bran is the last male Stark left at the end of the story, and House Stark is often associated with the creepy weirwood trees, as of course is Bran himself. From there, we'll move on to Beware the Beast Beneath the Boards. Coming to us from the show's 8th episode, fans went back and forth on what this line could mean. When Helaena has this prophecy, she's seen frantically pacing around the room, and Alicent tries to reach out to her, which Helaena doesn't appreciate. That sense of urgency drove fans like us into a tizzy. Well, the answer to this theory would come at the end of the next episode. While the Greens are busy throwing a fancy coronation party at the Dragon Pit for the new King Aegon, Rhaenys manages to sneak into the dragon chambers below. She then proceeds to dramatically burst through the ground, making a statement and accidentally killing thousands of King's Landing small folk. Before she takes off to bring bad news to Rhaenyra, the Lady of Driftmark stares down the Greens atop Meleys. It's possible that Helaena was panicking because she thought she'd become fire-roasted Helaena at this point, though Rhaenys spared them. This might not be the end of the story though. We don't know how much Helaena can see in her visions and how clearly, but if she knew Rhaenys would not kill them, she probably didn't have to be too worried. On the other hand, there are lots of awful things that came from below the Red Keep, specifically the underground tunnels. Book readers will know what we're alluding to, but we'll keep the suspense for show-only people. Now, we've got 2 more prophecies for today, and one of them makes for immediate foreshadowing. At the funeral of Laena Velaryon, Helaena, these names get seriously confusing, makes the prophecy that hand turns loom, spool of green, spool of black. Dragons of flesh weaving dragons of thread. This one is a real head-scratcher, though it's clearly referring to Team Green and Team Black, which both of them being made up of dragons of flesh or Targaryens. This episode brings many twists on both sides of the story. In the Black camp, Rhaenyra and Daemon decide to get hitched and fake the murder of Laenor in order to make that happen. On the Green side, Aemon scores them a dragon at the expense of his eye, which Otto sees as a huge net gain for them. All this scheming happens even as Viserys starts to show signs of losing his memory, which implies that his time is coming. So while this prophecy is less impactful than her other ones, it shows that Helaena has a good sense of everything that's going on, even if she herself doesn't see it. The final prophecy in this season summarizes the whole conflict that's coming. Helaena explains to us that it is our fate, I think, to crave what is given to another. If one possesses a thing, the other will take it away. This isn't a harbinger of events to come, but it explains why things are about to go really bad in Westeros. At the beginning of the show, Daemon resents the fact that Viserys gave a birthright to Rhaenyra that she shouldn't have by tradition, and as things go on, the Greens start to crave what was given to her. If you want to get cheeky about it, Aemond also took the eyes that Luke possessed, along with everything else and his dragon. And with that, that's it for today's video. Let us know in the comment section below your favorite Helaena scenes and prophecies, and we're about to make a prediction of our own that you'll totally like and share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more awesome content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.